whoever you are, wherever you are, hope you are blessed and doing safe. Ladies and gentlemen, greetings, family. Of course, I'm tuning in. You see me without the glasses off today, but if you're looking for some opportunities, particular advertisement opportunities, then look no further at the link at the bottom to my email address. You can hit me up for advertisement opportunities. We are supporting and promoting your businesses here on this channel. You can also, if you would like to donate and subscribe to our Patreon, a link is at the bottom as well. So you have multiple ways in which you can advertise with the platform by emailing me when we go on do our live stream. You also have access to premium content, those that want to see premium content that you will not find here on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter, as I am suspended probably by now. You guys can check out the Patreon at link at the bottom. But advertisement opportunities, definitely email me, gavin.grich1@gmail.com for rates. And for the Patreon, it is the same as the YouTube channel. It is channel gboot2786. All right? I'll holla.
Breaking news, Seattle Supersonics legend Shawn Kemp has been booked into jail in Pierce County in connection with a drive-by shooting. Fox 13 obtained this video of Kemp outside the Tacoma Mall. The person who sent it to us says it was taken just before Kemp was arrested. And now, new at 10, sources close to Kemp tell me he had property stolen from his car yesterday. He tracked his iPhone to Tacoma, and when he approached the vehicle, a suspect shot at him, so he fired back in self-defense.
Greetings, family. Welcome to another live edition of Random Topic Thursdays. Yes, I know I usually do the intro that you're used to seeing tonight, but I'm a little pushed for time, and I figured why not just get the real thing while we're right here. We are live, and I'm coming at you with 5. That was a breaking news from earlier today. Late last night, it was reported that NBA legend Shawn Kemp, who's known for the Sonic Boom, master dunker in the NBA for the Seattle Supersonics, led them to an NBA championship run, was arrested for felony drive-by shooting. I believe this happened out in, if I'm not mistaken, from reports in Tacoma. So sources say that Mr. Kemp was, if you heard that news, was involved in a drive-by shooting where he shot at some individuals in a car. No report on whether those individuals were killed. However, his attorneys have claimed he is shot in self-defense. Now, before we get into that story, which is breaking, we want to bring in, say hello to the chat. I see Torian Rain, Derek Bailey, Darius from Atlanta. I think we got Lamiko. Shout out to him, Alchemist and Book. Bunch of people that are here, ladies and gentlemen. And we're going to bring in our special guest who is always a member of this channel. I believe we're coming up on the anniversary of Random Topic Thursdays, which would be the 3-year anniversary when we started this. I believe it started around back in late March, early April when the pandemic came along, which is when Shawn and I really clicked. So I want you all to come on, give it up for our friend Shawn James. Shawn, good evening.
Good evening, Gavin. How are you?
I'm doing fine, brother. I'm doing good. Why don't you go ahead and do a plug-in?
The SJS Direct 2023 catalog kicks off on March 31st with the first book of the year, John Haynes Godbreaker, and you can get your copy of John Haynes Godbreaker right now in paperback, or you can wait till March 31st by putting out a pre-order at Kindle and other online digital booksellers and get your the first book of the SJS Direct 2023 catalog.
Yes, I also want to tell everybody you can support this channel because, as you know, the channel is not monetized. YouTube has us on a shadow ban. They do that with truth content creators. But you all can support this channel by donating at the Cash App, PayPal, or Zelle. It's much, it's much appreciated if you would all do that. You can also buy a couple of items that I have. Of course, my Creole seasoning, which is available for 4th of July barbecues you may want to try. Try it on chicken, meat, or fish. Nani's goes great with every dish. Go to naniscreoleblends.com. Get you some seasoning. Family is well worth it. Also, you can join, as you saw my links earlier. You can subscribe to our Patreon, and you can also, if you like to advertise, promote your business, you can hit me up in an email. And main thing also you can do is buy a couple of my book, The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania versus William H. Cosby Jr. on Kindle, Amazon Kindle right now. It's available as a must read. Shawn can tell you that himself. Of course, we have our songs got to get on up and Video Soul, which are on iTunes and Apple. But let's get started on what we're talking about. The Rain Man. Yes, Rain Man. Not Dustin Hoffman. We're talking about Sonic Boom, Shawn Kemp, who I think only rivaled, obviously, by Michael Jordan, was one of the best dunkers, less well-known dunkers in the NBA, charged with a drive-by shooting. Shawn, let's go back to the story so everybody can hear. Hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Also, we claim fair use, copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. It's made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. So we are doing this for news reporting and commentary. So let's go ahead without further ado and finish playing this video.
But there are still a lot of questions about exactly what happened that we're trying to sort out. So thanks for joining us. I'm David Rose.
And I'm Jamie Tompkins. We're following the story from every angle. Fox 13's Jennifer Dowling has been working to get answers about how all of this happened. So Jen, what are you learning tonight?
Well, we know the shooting followed some sort of altercation in a parking lot near the Tacoma Mall. That's according to Tacoma police. Investigators say it involved two vehicles, with police adding that one of the drivers stayed while the other left the scene.
This is cell phone video taken by a passerby as police responded to a shooting in a parking lot near the Tacoma Mall. That person believes it shows former basketball star Shawn Kemp around the time the shots were fired. Although police have yet to comment on what is shown here on this video, a spokesperson for Tacoma Police says a call came in about the shooting off of South Steel just before 2 p.m. on the northeast side of the mall near the Courtesy Tire store. Tacoma Police spokesperson Wendy Haddow says no one was hit in the shooting and that initially a 53-year-old man was detained at the scene and questioned. Multiple sources have since confirmed to Fox 13 that Shawn Kemp is the suspect and was ultimately arrested. This is a huge development, as many of you may know Kemp is a former NBA superstar who spent most of his career with the Supersonics. He's also a well-known local businessman who recently has opened 2 cannabis shops in the Seattle area, including this shop in Belltown. Today's incident would not be Kemp's first run-in with the law. In 2005, Kemp was arrested in Shoreline for investigation of drug possession. In 2006, he was involved in another drug investigation in Texas. Shawn Kemp was drafted by the Seattle Supersonics in the first round of the 1989 NBA draft. From 1989 to 1997, he played 625 games with the Sonics and helped to get them to the NBA Finals in 1996. In 2022, Kemp was part of the campaign to bring an NBA franchise back to Seattle, telling the Athletic Sports website he wouldn't stop until the city got, quote, the actual Sonics back.
And police said in addition to no injuries, there are also no reports of damage to any buildings or vehicles at this time. Back to you in the studio.
So yeah, that's Shawn Kemp. Matter of fact, lawyers for Shawn Kemp are stating that he shot in self-defense. Of course, this is my first time along with you all just reading the story. So former NBA star acted in self-defense, according to his attorneys, while trying to retrieve a stolen cell phone and other items in a Washington parking lot where he exchanged fire. Kemp, who's 53, was arrested by Tacoma police on Wednesday for an investigation of a drive-by shooting, but was released from jail Thursday afternoon without charges having been filed. The Pierce County Prosecutor's Office said it would not file charges pending further investigation. Kemp's attorney, Tim Leary, stated, "We're grateful that they didn't rush to judgment." In a written statement, another attorney, W. Scott Boatman, said Kemp's vehicle was broken into Tuesday night and several items were taken, including an iPhone. Kemp tracked the phone's location to an occupied car at Tacoma Mall, and when Kemp confronted the individuals inside, they shot at him and he returned fire. There was not a drive-by shooting as previously reported, and Mr. Kemp's actions were reasonable and legally justified. Mr. Kemp met with law enforcement at the scene in an attempt to assist in the matter. Police say that they recovered a gun at the scene. That's Shawn Kemp there. Damn, he's 53. And he's looking like Godfrey Cambridge. That's an old comedian who did from back in the 70s, y'all. Godfrey Cambridge did movies like Watermelon Man and I think Cotton Comes to Harlem. One of those movies. Yeah, but I'm grateful that all jokes aside, like y'all want a nick. You look like you're saying you want a knick-knack. But all jokes aside, I'm grateful that Mr. Kemp is alive and well. We all gotta wait to get the facts out before we rush to judgment. And of course, it doesn't surprise me he was arrested. There was a drive-by. Whenever there's a shooting involved, they always like to get the details and arrest the person that was there. Obviously, what happened, probably they saw him with the gun. He kicked it over. When you see the video, he's saying, pointing at the direction of where the individuals probably went. And they told him to get on the ground and they arrested him, but no charges have been filed. Shawn, you can give your thoughts on what happened here
Right.
so far. That's Godfrey Cambridge, by the way.
I have to wonder, why didn't Shawn Kemp call the police? That's the critical question I have to ask about this whole situation. Because usually, when people's property is stolen, they usually go out here and call the police. So that's a question that I'm asking as related to this whole situation. I mean, what made Shawn Kemp want to go out here and track this iPhone with these thieves? And why was it so important? I mean, if this guy is a millionaire, like he says, you would think he would leave this to law enforcement and let them deal with these individuals, unless whatever he has in that whatever would happen with it was something kind of shady. It's kind of suspect to me that he went out here and did this on his own and went after his own property. I mean, it's looking to me a lot like what happened with O.J. Simpson as related to what he allegedly did as related to retrieving his property. And it seems like he's kind of really being somewhat desperate as related to this situation, because you would think a guy with Shawn Kemp's wealth and his former NBA status would be thinking more about his health and his safety, and he would have enough money to, as related to insurance, to cover whatever was lost. I mean, if it's something like an iPhone, he can replace an iPhone like that, turn that one off. So it's really looking suspect to me that he just went out here and did this, because it only, unless if you're doing something illegal, you're gonna go looking for that whatever is there. Because if it's something legit and legal, you're just gonna again say let the police handle it and let insurance deal with it. But I'm looking at Shawn Kemp's behavior and it's looking a real suspect to me.
Well, let me just say this regarding that. It wasn't just a cell phone that was taken, there were other items. So if there was jewelry, there may be a ring that he had, perhaps. That might have also been another motivating factor why he went there. Let me say this also, because you mentioned the police, why he didn't get them involved. Cops, I can tell you, if it's not a life or death emergency, cops tend not to, how can I say this? They're freaking lazy sometimes with things like that.
I know, but I mean, I
So that's
just
probably his, well, that was probably his thinking with that. And this happened Tuesday night. He probably tracked it. Obviously was tracking it on Wednesday when it came back on. The guys probably had it on a phone charger. They couldn't obviously turn it off. They didn't have his login information at that time, and they may have been trying to swipe it and swipe out the SIM card and never did. And he was able, obviously, to track it with the iPhone tracker. But it was this could have turned out differently if they had connected with those bullets, if what he's saying is true
yeah.
as to what happened. He's innocent till proven guilty. And if he acted in self-defense, we'll see that as it may. They're going to wait, obviously, to press before any charges are pressed. But it was interesting to see that Shawn Kemp was involved in that. You had something else you wanted to add, Shawn?
No, nothing else I wanted to add. I mean, just find it just very questionable. And again, I just don't know. I mean, an iPhone, these things can get replaced. I know that there's other property, but I wouldn't. I would put my life above this property. I mean, whatever it is. I was an NBA. I don't think he has an NBA championship ring or anything like that. But I wouldn't really put.
He probably might have like a one of the runner-up rings. I don't know.
I don't know, but it just seems quite suspect to me.
Yeah, it could be, but I mean, he does own some cannabis shops across the city.
Yeah,
Couple.
but being in that business, it puts a target on your back, and I don't know what type of people he's involved with because that game is you're dealing with some shady types.
Yeah, we never. Yeah, we just don't know. We don't know enough of the
Yeah,
fact, and we'll just wait and see. But yeah, look, if he did go there and he act, even if he might be involved in something, he might not. If he did fire at these individuals, it is self defense.
yeah,
It is by law. But we'll find out. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna say this, especially I will say this though. If Shawn Kemp has money, he should have, I shouldn't say this, but he should have cops on his payroll. Have cops on his payroll, have security of some sorts that can go and handle stuff like this. I'll say that much. I'd agree with that. Hit that like, share, and subscribe button, ladies and gentlemen. We are hot and heavy up in here. Yes, indeedy, feed the needy. Hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Donate to the Cash App, PayPal, or Zelle, Venmo if you like this channel, if you like what we're doing. Hit that notification bell. That's even more important. I want you to talk about. Now, this, guys, the main thing that has been trending in the news uh, is this situation out. Sorry. Is this situation out in Mexico? Who has heard of this? This by now, I think everybody has been listening or had heard of what happened out in Mexico, where five cartel assassins kidnapped the Tummy Tuck Four. That's the nickname they're calling these four black individuals. I'm gonna just show you this. This is a tabloid. This is obviously from a tabloid or some major newspaper. This is the actual article. Look at this. I think this is the Daily Mail, if I'm not mistaken. Five Gulf cartel assassins who kidnapped the Tummy Tuck Four, killing two, are tied up and dumped in the street with a handwritten note from cartel bosses apologizing to the families of the victims. A Mexican cartel has turned over five of its members who kidnapped four Americans, including two who were murdered, and also shot dead an innocent bystander in the northern border city of Matamoros last Friday. Am I saying that right?
I think you are.
Matamoros last Friday. Matamoros. I think that's right. The five purported members of the Gulf Cartel's Scorpion Group armed wing were found by security forces tied up and dumped next to an SUV on a Matamoros street. The criminal organization apologized to the families of the victims for the broad daylight assault that shook the border town across from Brownsville, Texas. Now, what you see where my mouse is, that is the security footage that was taken when one of the individuals were kidnapped. And you see the other individuals, those four in the pictures, in that picture, that's the individuals here. Now, I have never heard, we're going to get into it a little bit more, but I have never heard of a cartel criminals apologizing with a note for murdering two people. This I have not heard of. Now, I'm going to play video footage because this was obviously major news across Americas. This is coming from CBS News about the deaths of two of the individuals. Hold on.
This news coming to us, according to the local governor in Mexico, two of those Americans are now dead. The group was kidnapped by a cartel in a northern border city. Relatives of the victims say they traveled into Mexico for medical procedures. Authorities believe
Tell me,
the group might have been mistaken for drug smugglers. CBS News
well,
correspondent
that's them
Omar
putting them in the
Villafranca
bed of
is
the
in
truck.
Brownsville, Texas. That's just over the border where those Americans were kidnapped. Omar, thanks for joining us at such short notice. What can you tell us about what the governor in that state in Mexico has said?
And I want to add a little bit to that attribution, Vlad. It was the governor of Tamaulipas and also the attorney general of Tamaulipas have both reported that 2 of the 4 Americans, as you mentioned, who were kidnapped, were killed. Another one of those, the third American, was injured. We do not know the condition of that American, and another one was not hurt. Now, here's what we're trying to figure out: who has passed away, and who is injured, and who is still alive. We're trying to get the proper names assigned with that. We know the names of the 4 people who were abducted, but we don't know at this point who is alive and who is dead. It's worth noting at this point that the U.S. government has been working with the Mexican government, and the Mexican government has said that they formed a task force to go and look for these people who were abducted last Friday. And another big question is, where are they? Where were they discovered? We don't know yet. We're trying to figure out the condition of the people who are still alive and where they are and if they are in safe hands. A lot of unanswered questions, but unfortunately, the information we do know is not good. 2 have passed away, 1 injured.
I want to name the 2 individuals. I'm gonna finish the video, but 2 of the individuals that were killed their names were Zindell Brown and Shaid Woodard. Now they have their pictures up. We'll share that in a minute. But I'm gonna finish this video so we all can see.
Has the White House or the State Department commented at all about this?
Right now, they're probably listening. The president of Mexico, AMLO, speaks, kind of in a briefing type setting, and some of that information came out in the president's briefing. We're waiting to get any response from the White House and the State Department and the FBI to see if, and from family members of these folks from North and South Carolina, trying to see if we can get any reaction from them and find out what happens next.
So, Omar, and I know this is, again, breaking news, and you're getting the information as we are reporting it live on the air here, but do we know, or do we have an understanding at all, if the 2 that are reported to be dead were killed, were executed? In other words, they were taken, abducted, and then executed, or were they perhaps hurt in that gunfire that killed that one Mexican woman, as you reported?
Well, and that's a question we don't know about, Vlad, but in the video that we have played before, and we want to warn people if we're playing it right now, it is disturbing. You see cartel members who are armed pull up in a pickup truck and put a woman in the back of a truck. I'm not sure if she was injured, but she was upright and they were walking her in. The other 2 did not look good. We see them dragging a body across the road, and we're not sure if it was blood or some other type of body fluid that was on the ground while they were dragging them and put them next to her in the back of that pickup truck. We don't want to jump to conclusions to say one of those people have died, but it did not look good from the initial scene from what we saw on Friday. And as you mentioned, a Mexican civilian who was there in that intersection was killed. So there were bullets flying left and right. There was cartel violence there in Matamoros on Friday. In fact, the local leadership there in Mexico, when that gunfire broke out in the afternoon, was basically telling people to shelter in place. So did the U.S. State Department. If there's Americans down there, stay in place. Why that's important? This is spring break right now. Here where I'm at, Brownsville is safe. The other side is Matamoros. But there's a lot of people who come down here, not only from Texas, but from the South, because South Padre Island, which you've probably heard of, is just down the road. This is the airport that you would most likely fly into to go to South Padre Island. People come here, they have a good time, maybe cross into Mexico to eat and maybe drink and have some fun and come back over. The State Department has a level 4 warning to not go over. Some people do anyway. So a lot of attention not only on the Mexican side but on the American side to see exactly what happened to these people.
Yeah, that's what I was sort of wondering about. So, what we learned this morning is that at least one person had gone down there for a procedure, probably a cosmetic procedure. I mean, that happens quite a lot, but in various places. But I wondered about how frequently it happened in this area, in this town. Is this an area that's known for plastic surgery procedures, or was this like a sort of an odd thing?
No, I mean, you're in a part here in Matamoros is a town of more than 500,000 people, and there are doctors there. On the other side, you have the border towns you have Brownsville, you have McAllen here. That's a big city where they can go to. Look, there's a lot of people, and I'll be honest, I grew up in San Antonio. We would go to Laredo, cross over into Nuevo Laredo, and you could go to a drugstore over there. You could get simple, amoxicillin. All my tias, all my grandmas wanted the retinol to put on their face. They wanted the cheaper medical stuff that they could get without a prescription. Nothing nefarious, but you could get it cheaper, and it was readily available over there. It's not uncommon for people here on the Brownsville side to say, like, well, I need to go to the drugstore. Instead of going to CVS, they cross over and they go and buy a few.
Let me just stop it right there, though. You said it's not uncommon for people from Brownsville to go over to the other side because the medicines are cheaper. But the problem is that these individuals traveled from the East Coast, per my looking at this, because one is from South Carolina, to come to a foreign country. And on top of that, supposedly to get a tummy tuck. And two of the individuals, we just want to say, and we're happy that they're alive, Latavia McGee and James Williams, survived. This is Latavia McGee. I believe the image that I had for you guys earlier that was in the thumbnail, she survived, and James Williams survived only with a wound to the leg. So this is McGee. She came down for a tummy tuck procedure, according to the reports. And that's Eric Williams. But Shaheed Woodard and Zindell Brown, who you see here, were murdered. They were killed. And this same woman, this is my first time clicking on it. Cheryl Orange, a friend of Latavia McGee, Eric Williams, and Dale Brown, and Shaheed Woodard, described how she dodged the ordeal. Videos taken from inside the car when the group began their road trip to Mexico show them singing happily and enjoying their time together. They say here that the four individuals were joined by a fifth friend of theirs, identified as Cheryl Orange, who had to separate from the group at the time, at the border, as she hadn't brought identification with her, and she was refused entry to Mexico. So she had to stay behind at a motel in Brownsville as her friends went across the border, and she didn't hear from them. So she got lucky. That's Shaheed Woodard, and that's Zindell Brown. You hear me?
Yeah.
We can play rest of the video, but this was disturbing, to say the least, that they did this. A lot of people do go over for cosmetic surgery. That's not uncommon. People get big, go to Brazil, get the big booty lifts, the BBLs. They go and get liposuction. They go and get these things, in part because, as you heard in the reports, it's much cheaper to do so. But at the cost of what? Because it might be cheaper here than in the United States, but when you go over to a foreign nation, you got to remember, number one, their laws are different. How they handle procedures are completely different. They may not have the best tools and care if you are getting some type of procedure that they'll be able to effectively take care of you or revive you. Most importantly, remember, when I say laws, the police departments, I don't, and this may be a shot against Mexican police officers. I don't know. I'm not trying to be prejudiced, but I heard stories about them where, let's just say, they're not as astute. They don't move fast enough when it comes to criminal acts. And I'm not saying that's always the case. I'm not going to comment, I'm not going to, let me take that back. I just think is that no, I'm not going to take it back. No. Let me just clarify. While I don't know what it's like down there, I wouldn't go somewhere where I'm not too familiar with. Now, she didn't go with strangers, but you got to remember the laws are different there than they are in the United States, and everything is done differently. I've heard stuff about them handling stuff, how you're not going to get things done. I mean, we still haven't found out what happened with Shandell Robinson, who was murdered a few months ago with her friends. That story is not talked about now. Have you heard anything about that, Shawn? I haven't.
Haven't heard a word about it. The story has been buried.
Yeah. So you got to be careful when you go down there. And with regards to their apology, they can take their apology and shove it up their ass. Because if they were truly sorry, first off, they dropped those 5 out there. They're not going to give any money to the family. Let's just say the least. They didn't drop any, they dropped them right there, tied them up, but didn't leave them any money, didn't leave explanation of who these men were. They left a sorry apology note. And the worst thing of all, they likely may not seek justice. But Shawn, give your thoughts about what we've seen here.
I'm sorry to hear about the passing of those 2 individuals, and I'm sorry for their loss. My condolences to their families. And it's really sad to hear this, but it sadly goes back to what I was talking about regarding Black people and traveling in many of my old passport videos. A lot of these guys go there based on their emotions regarding trying to get either a lady or trying to get a deal on some surgery or a deal on some drugs. And they are not really counting the cost as related to their intangibles like their freedom or their
Right.
safety or their health. And they're not really thinking critically about these places. And they're not, even worse, they're not doing their research. And that's sadly what happened here with these 4 travelers. They thought, oh, it would be just like traveling in America. But what they didn't understand is that
Right.
many of these countries, like Mexico, have a lot of danger in them. I mean,
Right.
basically, these drug cartels run these places, and the police there are extremely corrupt. So even though they have gone out and tied up a bunch of individuals and so-called delivered them with an apology note, it's an empty symbolic gesture because these same individuals will be processed by that same criminal justice system and let free sooner rather than later. So they know, just like in the case of Shanquella Robinson, that there is no thing for U.S. extradition. And they also know that many Black people, they're not going to be in a hurry to extradite these individuals as related to their murders and the violence they participated in. Now, they will again are making it look like, oh, we're giving up these guys for messing up, when in actuality, they are just looking to again make the empty symbolic gesture to make it look like they're doing something when they've done nothing at all for an extended period of time, because that's why these areas are just filled with all of this violence and terrorism. And that's why Black people, we got to start doing our research. I know a lot of Black folks want to say they want to go out here and get their passports and travel, but this is the type of danger a Black person can run into. And you got to do your research because places like Mexico are not very safe. They've been corrupt for decades. And there are certain regions like this one, which were considered to be war zones. But these young travelers, all they were thinking about was saving a couple of bucks on some medicine, a couple of bucks on some plastic surgery. And in their quest for vanity, they put their own lives in jeopardy. And this is where we got to start getting smarter about traveling, because if we don't do our research, you can wind up in one of these more dangerous areas of one of these countries, and you could wind up putting your whole life in danger over something so small, because you may have come there to save your money, But if you don't know how to navigate those streets, you're not going to be able to save your life.
Listening to this, one of the, I think the sister and mother gave a story to the news. I believe it was Christina Hickinson and her daughter Zayla Gant said they made contact with the FBI, who confirmed their family members and Dale Brown is one of the missing. And Hickson said her son went on the trip to support one of his friends who was having a medical procedure, and she didn't find out until he and his friends had reached Mississippi. You look at this. This is the minivan. So Wednesday, March 1st, they drove from South Carolina. They crossed through Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi. Obviously, they took I-12 to New Orleans, I-12 to Slidell, and drove all the way west on I-10 to Brownsville, Texas, and then to Matamoros. Nothing about this makes sense. So unfortunately, Zindell Brown and Shaheed Woodard are deceased. This young woman, Arlie Servando, was struck by a stray bullet and died. That's Latavia McGee. This is the woman who was having the tummy tuck. She's okay, and a friend that was there, she's alive too. And they had that letter. And this person, they say Jose N, was arrested in connection because he was monitoring the individuals. What they were trying to do was get a ransom. And the FBI offered, I think, a $50,000 reward for anybody who knew about their whereabouts to try and save them. I believe the traveling to this city, the United States has issued a red alert to all U.S. citizens going over to this area because it's high in cartel activity. If you watch even the movie Sicario, which I know it wasn't shot there, but in that particular city, but that was highlighting some of the problems they have with cartels in Mexico. And by the way, they have some of the strictest gun control laws in the nation. They have some of the highest crime rates. Defense Secretary General Luis Salvador was asked about kidnappings on both sides of the borders, especially in the United States, where victims are taken into Mexico to seek ransom. Tamaulipas has been a state where violence, the presence of groups, has been important, he said. It should be noted during the current administration's security strategy was established and very specific objectives were set for Tamaulipas for the border to take care of the border. This is the Mexican Attorney General. So this is how the White House responded. And I'll just say this. Just play this briefly.
We're still working with Mexican officials to learn more and to have all Americans return to the United States.
This is old, obviously.
President Biden has been kept updated on this incident. Senior members of the White House have also been engaged. We extend our deepest condolences to their families and friends. For the sake of privacy and out of respect to the families, we are going to refrain from further comment about those circumstances at this time. I can confirm that U.S. officials are in touch with the families of the individuals, but again, we will respect their privacy regarding our conversations with them.
They thought these were Haitian. Purportedly, they said they were members of a rival Haitian group, which that doesn't even make any sense. It makes no sense. But there's a message with all of this, ladies and gentlemen. You got to be careful where you travel. You got to know your whereabouts. Even if you travel with individuals, don't go anywhere alone. Uh, Certainly know where you're going. Also, they warn, and I agree with this wholeheartedly, don't make yourself a victim. And by that I mean, don't make yourself an easy target. Don't wear flashy jewelry. Don't wear fancy clothes. Go there so that you don't make yourself an easy target, that you know you're there to mean business. If you go there basically not knowing what you're doing, things will happen to you. People think you're a pushover and they'll do that. People think you're an easy target and they'll take you out. Most importantly, see if you can bring a gun. Probably couldn't because the Mexican authorities, when you cross the border, they're going to search you. But, I'm Second Amendment all the way. Shawn, you have any final thoughts?
No, outside of telling people, before you go out here traveling, you got to do your research. And doing a little bit of research online could possibly save your life. So that's all I have to add as related to this topic. I need to take a break for a second. I'll be right back.
While we are waiting for Shawn, guys, we'll play, I guess, a little advertisement that we have. We'll play that in a second as I'm waiting for Shawn. Hold on one second. I'm attorney Gavin M. Richard. Check out my latest book, The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania versus William H. Cosby Jr., The Destruction of Due Process in America. For approximately 2 years now, I have gone on a painstaking quest to investigate the rise and fall of an American icon, Bill Cosby. In the mid-1980s, there was not a star that was higher than Cosby. Advertisements with Coca-Cola, Jell-O, Kodak, along with television show for 5 straight years in a row on Thursday nights. It was must-see TV on NBC. Cosby resurrected the genre of the traditional family sitcom that was once thought dead by television critics. He did this as a Black American with an all-Black cast and showed mainstream network executives in white America that it was possible to be successful without showing the worst in people. He also demonstrated the power that television had, as it can make younger people dream to be the best that they can be. However, like many celebrity stars, unfortunately, they all come crashing down. Sometimes by their own fault, others not so much. In this book, I attempted to highlight certain things. We go in depth into both of his trials in 2017 and 2018, respectively. What if I told you that these criminal trials were politically motivated by an overzealous district attorney? Will you also be shocked to learn the attacks on Mr. Cosby did not start in 2014, but also in the 90s, not long after his attempted quest to purchase a major network? From where did all of these allegations of sexual misconduct come from? Were the accusers telling the truth? In the 2 years of research, with some help from others interested in learning the truth and facts about this case, we discussed both the legal reasons why his prosecution and trial were illegal, unwarranted, and also the possible personal motives as to why this may have occurred. Most importantly, we warn about the dangers of prejudice and why trial by social media, or mainstream media rather, should never be the norm. All this and more in The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania versus William H. Cosby Jr., The Destruction of Due Process in America. Available on Amazon this fall in Kindle and paperback format. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that, y'all. We're back, and Shawn is back with us. That was a trailer for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania versus William H. Cosby Jr. Shawn, I'm going to tie these two topics in now because this is just a thought on something. Now, I know you have done your video. One of the biggest news that's come out of this weekend, of course, is the Chris Rock special, comedy special, Selective Outrage, that debuted on Netflix. I believe it's according, they don't have the ratings as of yet, but it was highly anticipated. Chris Rock, of course, signed a two-show agreement with Netflix about a year ago after the infamous Oscar slap by Will Smith over a joke he made regarding Will Smith's wife, Jada Pinkett Smith. And that deal was for $40 million to do two shows. This show, of course, was special as the Selective Outrage special was the first that was live streamed on Netflix. It actually went live. It was not pre-recorded. And you can honestly tell that because Chris Rock made a lot of errors in made a couple of errors in his special that I believe even a tweet from Netflix stated that they had fixed. This was, I think, a story that came out from the New York Post. But after the reviews, they've stated that Will Smith apparently was left embarrassed after Chris Rock's Netflix special, per the report. They say that Will is embarrassed and hurt by what Chris said about him and his family in his Netflix special. He didn't watch it, but he had people tell him what Chris said. The insider went on, adding that Will and Jada have seen comments about it is being claimed by Entertainment Tonight via one of their sources. Will Smith reportedly would like for Chris Rock to let go of the subject, especially after he has shown remorse and publicly apologized for the matter. Will apologize to Chris and would like Chris to let it go. Now, Jimmy Kimmel is hosting the Oscars this year. He says he'll beat the shit out of anyone who tries the Oscar slap. Now, I watched the special. I believe, Shawn, you had watched it.
I watched the clip.
You watched the clip of it. So
Yeah.
I would play a clip, but I don't know if YouTube might sense.
And his wife was fucking her son's friend, okay? Now, I normally would not talk about this shit. But for some reason, these niggas put that shit on the internet. I have no idea why two talented people would do something that fucking low down. What the fuck? We all been cheated on. Everybody in here have been cheated on. None of us have ever been interviewed by the person that cheated on us on television. None of us. It's like, hey, I was sucking somebody else's dick. How did that make you feel?
Yeah. So that was part of it. Now, you did a video where you said Chris Rock took Will Smith to the barbecue and get the coleslaw ready. What were well, obviously you haven't seen it, but your thoughts about the special from what you heard?
Well, from what I heard about the special, it wasn't that great of a comedy special.
Yeah.
And as I see it, basically Chris Rock was playing his cards right as related to getting paid because he after the slap, he could have just sat there, did an interview with one of these reporters and got himself on the air for some attention. But instead, what he did was play the chess game and remain silent. And as he remained silent, he built up the price as related to this interview, and he got the best deal as related to his response. And that's the key word here. Chris Rock responded to Will Smith's emotional reaction in a way that worked towards his business interests,
Right.
because Chris Rock understood at the end of the day, Hollywood is a business, and he was working at that Oscar show. And even though Will Smith slapped him, he was still working after he got slapped, and he worked even after the show was over, understanding the business of the entertainment business and understanding the entertainment business is about making sure that you line up your next job. That's what Chris Rock understood as related to the whole game, and he played it very exceptionally well as related to Will Smith. But Will Smith, as I see it, comes across as a pathetic dude because when I listen to his response, it just comes across as just so pathetic. I mean, here you have a guy who was just, he's cooked you and roasted you and barbecued you, and your reaction is to just start getting emotional like a female once more. And I'm wondering, where does Jada have Will's testicles inside of the change purse of her Birkin bag? I mean, you have this Chris Rock making a show called Selective Outrage, and the reason why he was able to make a show called Selective Outrage is because Will was never outraged about the disrespectful way his wife has been treating him, and because he was not outraged about the way his wife had been disrespecting him, that's why his emotions were a mess, and this is why he exploded in rage, stormed up on that stage, and embarrassed himself. And as he's embarrassed himself, all he's sitting up here is doing is going out here and apologizing and going out here and then making pathetic statements, making people look at him and wondering what is wrong with this dude. Because usually a man, once he goes out here and makes a mistake, he can accept that loss and move on. But Will went out here playing the victim, which made it where people are starting to lose respect for him. And as they lose respect for him, they listen to this response and look to lose more respect for him because instead of him standing up like a man and turning his whole situation around, he's sitting up here talking about how he's upset, talking about how it hit his wife below the belt. No, your wife kicked you in the nuts when she brought you on Red Table Talk and emasculated you. And what's even more emasculating that even Chris didn't even see was Will is paying for all of this stuff. I mean, he's paying for the Red Table Talk show. He's paying Jada Pinkett to disrespect him. And he's sitting up here putting up with this mess. And the sad part is he's sitting up here making a pathetic response. And that pathetic response makes us all look at Will and see him as nothing more than a joke. I mean, even after he got cooked and roasted, he's still sitting up here not understanding that it's the way he is acting that's leading the people going out here being able to cook and roast him, just like I'm doing right now. And again, he's sitting up here talking about how he's upset about Chris Rock when he needed to be outraged over the way Jada Pinkett disrespected him over the last year.
Yeah, I got to say this and tie this in now. I'm gonna also, well, let me get to this. You've heard this story, tying that in with Taj Jackson, because Taj, who's a friend of mine, who's been on this channel, very nice, very nice guy, very warm, took issue with Chris Rock using his uncle as a punching bag. And I've explained earlier on Sunday what the joke was. Essentially, Chris Rock took a shot at Michael Jackson when he talked about selective outrage, and he compared, for instance, you're okay with listening to Michael Jackson, you'll be a fan, but if you play R. Kelly, you're gonna become an activist. Same crime, just one got better songs. That essentially was the joke, and a lot of people didn't like it. He was even, of course, he cracked jokes on O.J. Simpson. And like I said before, I'm not judging Taj on it because I believe he's defending his uncle. Well, I don't believe he is. He's defending his uncle. He's defending his family. Who is deceased. Uh, they felt that it was a dig. And Chris Rock, it is true, he has taken shots at Michael Jackson, his family. I mean, he was talking about O.J. Simpson as well. But I want to ask what you think of that. Although Chris Rock hasn't responded to Taj, to my knowledge, and likely won't.
Well, I think that those jokes would be very tasteless. I mean, going after Michael Jackson, that's really low, especially when the FBI has already cleared Michael Jackson of all criminal wrongdoing. I believe that that was just going too far. But with Chris Rock, we know that he's a minstrel. We know that he's a bootlick, and he's just doing whatever will get him more money from his slave masters at Netflix. And this is all part of what he does to get money. Again, He's looking to go push the narratives of his slave masters. And again, going after Michael Jackson, he may reap what he sows sooner rather than later.
Well, I'm not judging Taj Jackson on what he's talking about. I understand where he's coming from. And yeah, I thought when I heard the joke, I thought it was kind of corny. It was a dig. Same thing with OJ. Although, he's saying OJ did it and was making a bigger joke off the Kardashians, how he said Robert Kardashian's daughters from now on will be involved with nothing but well, he said nothing but niggas. God was cursing him for that. Now, I got it was a joke. And my review of the special, I already said I gave it a B minus. But I'm going to tie this in with that. Are we too sensitive now to stand up in comedy? I've asked this before. Now, in fairness, yes, Chris Rock made jokes about Michael Jackson and OJ. I did hear jokes. I have to say, in fairness, he talked about the Capitol rioters and said they were the white planet of the apes. He did crack on Elon Musk, although the way I guess you could say he cracked on Elon Musk was more of a compliment than anything about how he has no sperm because he gets women all on him and things of that nature. But I got to say this because I listen to people and rewinding it back to what we were saying about Will Smith, what you were saying, and you and I have had these conversations before. I had somebody on my backup channels going back and forth with me, talking about Chris Rock wouldn't have done that, was wrong, and Will Smith deserved to slap him. I'm glad he did that. He wouldn't have told that joke to Mike Tyson. Hey, doofus, Will Smith wouldn't have gotten up and slapped Ricky Gervais or Don Rickles if he cracked that joke on Jada. Old ass, even though he's dead, old Jewish guy, Don Rickles, who used to rip celebrities, was known for roasting audience members. There's a consequence for when a black man hits a white man versus us on us. And y'all know that. And you saw that on that night. Y'all talk about Mike Tyson wouldn't have been at the Oscars in the first place. But the point is, Will Smith wasn't going to go up against no big dude. He wasn't going to go up against, even if it was Bernie Mac or Steve Harvey. He picked on a little man. As annoying as he may be, and this is what I'm finding out. It's more of the people that are supporting, obviously, against Chris Rock, against praising what Will Smith did. I'm learning, Shawn. Black people just don't like Chris Rock.
Yeah.
And I get it. I'm not defending. Look, my position has been to defend the right of comedy, the right to joke, the right of someone to say what they have to say on stage, not necessarily defending what they say, but their right to say. Because you all who comment, just like, yes, this is an open platform, but remember, this is my damn channel. All 4 of them have my name on it. It's an open platform, yeah, but you're going to respect me as the host. Just like Shawn has his platform, it's open, but you respect me. Got it? So I'm looking at this. I'm listening carefully. You guys go to, I take some of you probably have not gone to a comedy club in your life or comedy show. But go to a comedy show right now if there's a comedy club in your hometown, and when a comedian is on stage and says something you don't like, try and get on stage and see what happens. If you're in Los Angeles, go to the Comedy Store, go to the Laugh Factory, see if you can get on stage, somebody cracks an abortion joke. You didn't like that. You know how many times I've had, Shawn, y'all know how many times I've gone to a comedy club and have to hear these tatted up white women talk about their abortions? how they are pro-choice. You think I like hearing that? I don't. And sometimes it's funny. I won't lie, but I'm pro-life. I mean, look, the greatest stand-up comedian, one of the greatest stand-up comedians of all time is George Carlin. George Carlin was known for making jokes about God, mocking religion. You believe in God? No, I don't. You're dead. You believe in God? Yes. Is it my God? No. My God's got a bigger dick. Pow. He did jokes like that. He did an entire 10-minute set, 10 or 12-minute set, roasting the 10 Commandments. And when we were coming up as kids, and I know you all are, we were taught you don't mock the Lord, right? You don't blaspheme, yeah. But he did it. And I'm not gonna lie, I laughed at some of it. I laughed at it. And I'm Catholic. I have a sense of humor. If people are that sensitive to stuff, don't watch the special. Don't watch TV. The best thing you could do to Chris Rock, if you don't like Chris Rock, guys, is not watch the special. Because guess what? If you got a Netflix subscription, and I'm not saying you don't have a right to critique, you do. But the way that you hurt people, especially if you don't like them, is by not supporting them. Because if you us talking about it, and here's the thing, Shawn, when people talk about it, guess what? People are gonna want to see it. People are gonna want to see what you're talking about. It happened with Married with Children. Terry Ricolta. I don't know if you remember that story.
I remember it. I lived it.
You lived it. I was too young. I didn't know nothing about it. I still watched.
I was in high school when that was going on.
Right. Well, Ricolta called for a boycott of Married with Children because there was an episode where Steve and Al and Steve go into it was like a Victoria's Secret, but it was very lewd. You had women that were half naked, and men. There was even a scene where there was a man, elderly man, with lingerie on underneath, and she was offended by it, so she called for Fox to pull all the sponsors from. She organized a campaign to get all the sponsors pulled, and initially it worked. But what happened simultaneously was that people flocked on Fox Channel to see Al Bundy and see what they talked about. And that was in 1989. The show lasted 8 more years. So it went on 11 seasons. So she did more harm to her cause than support it.
Streisand effect.
Right. Talking and grubbing, talking about how Steve Harvey is sensitive to jokes about him. Yeah, I've heard that too. Godfrey does impressions of him. He's like, I don't know where, I don't know why, but when I see you, I'm gonna put my foot in your ass. Yeah. Yeah, Steve Harvey. I mean, yeah, Steve Harvey makes jokes about him. It's like that. And like I said, regarding the special, because I'm a comedian myself and I give a critical analysis of it, there were a lot of people who didn't like it. Somebody, I've heard there have been most I think bad reviews, people that are sensitive, people that I think just don't like Chris Rock. There was an article. There's an article here where they said Chris Rock and Dave Chappelle, we're not outraged, we're bored. Chris Rock basically did an hour's work and got $20 million. So they say the problem with Rock and other comics who have made woke mobs their target is that they don't actually have anything new or interesting to say about their supposed silencing. Well, that might be because you were the target of the joke. So are we too sensitive now? Because I'm looking at this generation. Our parents where you came from, Shawn, especially growing up in the 80s, you and even I know you probably remember a little bit about the 70s. They had movies like Blazing Saddles, which probably couldn't be made today. You had on television All in the Family, Sanford and Son, Good Times, The Jeffersons, where racial epithets were thrown freely. George Jefferson and Fred Sanford would call you a nigger in a heartbeat. They didn't care. Archie Bunker would use epithets. Well, there were some people who had a problem with it, but the shows were hits. And supposedly Norman Lear was trying to use that to point out the stupidity of bigotry. Now, it had its detractors. A lot of people don't know this, but Lucille Ball, she threatened to remove, not cancel her show. And I think I could be wrong, library from CBS. She wanted nothing to do with CBS Family because she was she was married to Desi Arnaz. She was in an interracial relationship. So she remembered, obviously, the nasty things that they said to her husband and her, right? So I can understand that. But I think is if you're that sensitive, let me just say this. If you don't to be offended, if you want some type of different style of comedy, go see if you go look on Google for knock knock jokes. But don't take your ass to a comedy club if you're sensitive. Don't sit up in the front row because they're gonna talk about you. But if you come up on stage, especially if I'm performing and some of these other comics, we not Chris Rock. And that's just the point I'm making. Do not come up here. You're not Will Smith. Will Smith got away with what he did because he had the reputation and wealth that he does. He had status. That's what that was about. There was no justification for it. You think, Shawn?
No.
No, there wasn't. And y'all know that. He comes across as an asshole. Who? Good Lord. So, but yes, and look, a lot of people didn't like Bill Cosby. They don't like, I've heard people say his style of comedy is boring. I've heard even people didn't like Richard Pryor because he said the N word. He cursed a lot. Eddie Murphy. I mean, you're not going to satisfy everybody. Dave Chappelle is hearing the same thing. When you had people at Netflix walked out on Dave. But I've talked a long time, Shawn. I did want to ask you, do you think we're too sensitive now?
I think a lot of us are too sensitive. I think people are just too fragile these days. I mean, I grew up in the 80s where you had comedians like Eddie Murphy and Sam Kinison and Andrew Dice Clay dropping profanity everywhere, and people
Bill Cosby.
weren't phased. I mean, I even grew up in the late 70s watching reruns of All in the Family and the Jeffersons and Sanford and Son, and people were saying all kind of stuff, and people weren't phased. I grew up with Three's Company, which had all sorts of sexual innuendo. And I watched that show as a kid and didn't even care. And today's people are just too fragile. They think about stuff too much. They need to go find themselves some hobbies because comedy ain't that serious. I mean, people sitting up here getting upset
Right.
over stuff that kids in the 80s basically laughed at. Teenagers in the 80s basically laughed at and didn't care because we had other stuff to focus on, like getting good grades, working our jobs when we could get them, and going out here and just trying to just live our lives because things were already rough out here. So people here have it too good that they're focusing on, oh, so what somebody said offended them. Back in the 80s, what we would do if something offended us, we just changed the channel. I mean, that's how we dealt with stuff because the whole thing is if a show was bad, we just didn't support it. And the thing that people are doing today is they just keep getting upset over stuff that they shouldn't get upset over. And they should just learn how to just, again, if you don't like it, just click out of it. I've been saying that for over about 10, 15 years, ever since YouTube had these people flagging people's videos on the gender war. And the thing that you need to do is if you don't like some content, there's a red X at your tab. Just click out of it and keep it moving. It's not about starting some social justice cause. I mean, comedy is a part of life. And if you don't like somebody's comedy, just don't watch it. But don't turn it into a political event because it's not that serious. Again, it's just comedy. And if you don't like the gags, then just don't go watch the show.
Right. Just don't watch well, don't watch the show is the best thing you can do. That's the best thing you can do. Just hit the power button, pick up a book and read. That's even better. And I can tell you something. Corey Holcomb, I mean, we're talking about comedians. If especially you're sensitive about things dealing with LGBTQ or even with women in particular, don't go to a Corey Holcomb show. Don't go there. I Corey Holcomb does not hold back. He even talked about the special, and from his point, he thought it was brilliant. Now he's a comedian, and Corey said that if he was the one on stage, he would actually be going at he would have gone even harder on Jada. So, I mean, I've gone to comedy clubs. I sat in the front. The first time I was in a comedy club, Sean, was actually in Baton Rouge at the Funny Bone, and there was a female comedian. Name was the Tennessee Tramp, white lady. Uh, I went to the show. I sat little right in the front of the stage, right in the front part by the table, and she riffed on me, just looking at me saying, "Oh, you so cute. I would like to rub you the ball, ball you together and be a little fuck ball," or stuff like that. Or you look like you're still a virgin, just making jokes on me. And I didn't get mad at it. I laughed. I mean, it was awkward, but I laughed at it. I didn't get up and try on the stage try to get her to stop or anything like that. But it happened. I saw J. Anthony Brown riffing on people in the audience. He riffed on somebody in the front row, and the guy I think was and he was riffing. It was time from time. He wasn't spending his total time on him, and the guy stepped out. I don't for whatever reason, leaving his wife, and he said, "Where you going? What's his name? Marvin. Marvin. Marvin." Put his microphone down to go get him, and everybody just started laughing. But the guy was really just trying to go get something to eat. And J. Anthony Brown bought the guys a drink. Bought all the people he was ripping on. He bought them a drink afterwards for being good sports. So I mean, if you get sensitive, I mean, you gonna if you get too sensitive, the moral to that is you're gonna miss out on a free drink. But Computer Robot said, "I got a question for you, Gavin and Sean. When do you think people got sensitive? Like when did people started taking things much more serious in your perspectives?" If I had to guess, it was these Gen Z, this TikTok generation is when it started. Um, I can remember back in '07 with Don Imus. Now, Don Imus was a piece of shit. I thought he was a racist piece of shit. But I remember when his show was taken off the air when he referred to the Rutgers players as nappy-headed hoes. Now, they got Al Sharpton involved and he got fired from his show on NBC. But what happened a few months later? Don Imus got another show on CBS. So did the ends justify the means? Was the boycott and what Al Sharpton was doing really effective? If you wanted to take him off the air, guess what? He got another job. So maybe the most effective thing to have done in a situation to make it a teachable moment for him was, let's not cancel his show. What we're going to do is take your paycheck and we're going to give it to these girls who you call nappy-headed hoes to go towards their tuition. You think we're hoes? You're gonna pay our way through college, bitch. That's that's the great option. Don't you think? Do you agree? That would have been a great example that would have been set. Take his money, use it towards the United Negro College Fund. We're going to put more black lawyers. We're going to create more black doctors, construction workers, architects, construction workers, excuse me, architects, artists, people that also work in communications, because that's what we need to. We need black owned radio stations again. Shawn?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I would just say that, yeah, we do need more black on radio stations, and people just need to stop being so fragile. And again, this all started, I believe, in the 90s with political correctness. We had something called political correctness, trying to appeal to the more sensitive people about their feelings. And it's just gotten out of control at this point, to the point where we have these social justice warriors who get offended at basically everything out here. And all these people just need to take a chill pill because it ain't that serious. I mean, these people, they are just everything offends them. And if they're offended by everything, I hate to take them out into this world and experience life because life is very rough, life is very hard. And if you go out here looking to try to go after people with your offenses, chances are you're going to get punched in the mouth. And people are not going to be listening to your little pity parties, and that's something that this generation doesn't understand. But all of this really started in the 90s with political correctness, and political correctness turned into social justice, which turned into this just insanity we have now. And this insanity we have now is creating a dysfunctional culture of snowflakes who cannot deal with the real world and the fact that real people have different opinions and different viewpoints. And the real world is filled with a lot of people who are not here to please you, and these people, again, have not been raised to understand what reality actually is.
Yeah. Uh, I think Shawn, computer robots wanted to know, when did you think people started to be more sensitive?
That was back in the 90s.
You think in the 90s?
Yeah, back in the early 90s.
I don't know about 90s.
I was there.
I guess
I,
well, I was there too, but I think if you want, there were some. Let's put it this way: you didn't have social media then, where you had everybody giving their opinion on something, and I mean, I knew there were people, for instance, like when Def Comedy Jam came out. I remember there were some people who didn't like that. They criticized it because it was vulgar. I know people who I know there were people, as Talking and Grumman Talk is describing, that wanted In Living Color off the air. There were some people complaining about that. That's true.
I
But
was there for all that. And they just kept doing what they was doing and told them, hey, if you don't like it, then just go watch something else.
yeah, I think it started, but it really got where it may have had its rumblings there, but I think it really picked up, honestly, with what we have today. Because I mean, shit, Howard Stern used to be. I mean, he wasn't even funny. He just was flat out mean and racist with his stuff. He's not a comedian. He's a shock jock to me. He passes himself off that. Don't get me wrong, guys. When I say I support the art of comedy, that means I support free speech. That doesn't mean I agree with everything someone says. Like, I didn't think Chris Rock's special, looking at it, was it wasn't his best. His best, honestly, was from 96 to 99 when he did Bigger and Blacker and Bring the Pain. Those were his shows. AW1 says, "What's up, brothers? I love comedy. I was at Dwan's show not that long ago, and he got me good. And what do you think, I guess, of his opinion on the Chris Rock special? Dwan B's my dude. I be seeing Dwan go live. I can't really see his videos because he goes live in the dark, and he looks like a boss on a final Nintendo game and shit. So just that's my homeboy though, out of LA. Shout out to Dwan B. Dwan is entitled to his opinion. I agree with some of the stuff he said on it. I didn't think it was the greatest stand-up special of all time. It was hyped up because obviously with the slap, nobody, and as Shawn alluded to, everybody was trying to see his response because Chris Rock really was not talking too much about it. And I will give him credit for this. He said, "I'm not a victim, and I'm not going to be on Oprah and Gail." And I think the reason why, as Shawn alluded to, Chris did this, it was a business decision because he got $40 million out of this. He knew if he had commented and not sooner than that, because everybody's saying, well, why did he wait? Why did he wait so long? This was business. Will Smith not only looked like a fool, he basically handed Chris Rock a free $40 million check by doing that. And that's the point I was trying to get to people. There are different ways you handle a situation. Because the perfect situation would have been to shame him after when you got up to win your Oscar and make him look like an idiot. He could have said stuff like, well, you know, Chris, at least we're still married. Or, I'm pleasure to hold this Oscar. Chris, I know you were holding Oscars before because we all know that's the closest you'll ever get to winning one as a presenter or something like that. That would have been funny, right? And then he could have highlighted the situation with Jada, and that would have increased awareness. So I mentioned that, but just my opinion on Juan. I know he's went at it with Chris Rock, or has it not went at it with Chris Rock, went at it with DL because he felt Chris to be doing some low key, cool and tacky shit, and I did see where he defended. I guess he was defending Will Smith for what he did because he was talking about the man's wife. But that's my thought on it. But my opinion has always been, hey, that didn't warrant that. Like I said, a better way. Shawn, did you have one final thing?
No, I don't have anything else. I gotta go because I got a busy day tomorrow. So
Yeah,
I
same
want to
here.
thank you for having me on.
Thank you, Shawn. Want to do a plug in right quick?
All right, you can pick up John Haynes Godbreaker on Amazon.com right now in paperback, and you can pick up many of the other books on the SJS Direct imprint on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them at other online booksellers like Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play.
All right, and buy The Woman Crisis on Amazon too.
All right, so I want to thank you for having me on, and I got to go. So,
what's your show going to be about tomorrow?
I'm going to be talking about racism in fandom and going in depth on it.
All right. Well, good night, Shawn. We thank you for coming. Appreciate you, brother. Go ahead.
All right.
All right. Yeah. We're going to wrap this up too, guys. I thank y'all for tuning in. I will do probably, I said I was going to stay away, but you never know if I drop another video, especially we got to talk this thing with the Ja Morant situation. I'll just say briefly, I saw that they're not going to be pressing any charges. Let me just talk about this quick while I got you on. Ja Morant, there are no charges that were going to be filed by the Glendale Police Department out in Colorado because there was not enough evidence, to say the least, as to the charges that they were alleging, any charges that Ja Morant alleged to have broken. They couldn't find any evidence to support that. I hope the brother, I'll just say this too much. I'm not going to come too hard on the brother because he's young. There are things he should know better about. Obviously, you work for the NBA. You got to watch your image. And especially as a young black man, they always try to come at you even for the slightest things that you do. So that video wasn't wise. But I had heard, and I don't know if someone can confirm this, but supposedly I watched, Stephen A. Smith. I watched Shannon Sharp give their takes. I think Stephen A. Smith, I could be wrong, but did he or did he not call for a 50-game suspension? I could be wrong. I don't want to say the wrong thing. But I will say this. So I'm not going to confirm that. So I'm never going to say anything uh bad. But too much on Stephen A. But even saw Skip open his mouth, even comparing or asking if John Morant was a Crips and Bloods thing. I saw that shit. I could believe it because of Skip Bayless, but uh I couldn't believe it. It was like I was shocked but not surprised in seeing that. Let me play that right quick. Hold on. This is what Skip Bayless had to skip. Listen to this. Hold on.
Well, time out. Are you sure you guys on TV aren't giving him a pass here? Like you're not that? They're asking me, are you sure he's not that? Like he that's just who he is, that he is about that life. And remember, he's thrown up the Crip sign several. I've seen him throw it up 2 or 3 times. I probably missed some other times. What does that mean? Does that mean he wants to associate with the Crips, or he got initiated by the Crips, or he has a dream of being a Crip? I don't know. I'm just throwing this out. That are we missing the boat here? That's just who he's been from the start, and we keep saying no. You're just associating with the wrong people when he's actually part of the wrong people. Is that it?
Skip, that you know what, Skip? You and the people that you talk to might be 100% correct, but that makes it even more egregious.
It does.
Because you got out.
You
got
out.
You're questioning a man as a Crip because he did a Crip sign. Have you ever heard of the Crip walk before? The Crip walk is a popular dance. And they're trying to compare. Boosie Badass even came as Skip saying, don't build the narrative that he's a real gang member. He's not a Crip. He's a professional black basketball player who made a mistake. You would think just by listening to all of this, guys, you listen to all of this stuff, you would think that John Morant actually was a member of the way they're playing out on sports media is like John Morant killed 1,000 people today. That John Morant is a member of was discovered he was a member of Murder Inc. John Morant, and this is selective outrage. I agree with it. This is selective outrage to this point. Like Chris Rock said, ESPN, Fox Sports, they've been around for, I want to say for a long time. ESPN in particular has been around for 4 years. You have had white athletes, like I've explained before, like War Machine, Chad Wheeler, even Hope Solo, that got in trouble for domestic violence issues. War Machine raped his girlfriend. Chad Wheeler beat the hell out of his black girlfriend. And Hope Solo beat up her husband. I think it was her nephew and her sibling that she assaulted. I could be wrong. Or it might have been her husband. Either way, she was charged with domestic violence. ESPN and Fox Sports didn't give a dissertation day after day like they're doing with John Morant. And I get you can say that the NBA is more popular. John Morant is one of the brightest stars, obviously, in the NBA, which is why they may be giving more focus to it. Fine. That may be true. But when you have people doing things far more egregious that are in that world of sports, let's not forget Dana White with Stephen A. That we remember, who slapped his wife on video. Stephen A. Smith didn't go hard on him like he did Kyrie. I don't even think Skip is there and talked about it that much. White is right. White is given immunity. Black, not so much. What John Morant did was stupid. He likely broke some NBA violations for their image clause that he has in the contracts. because they, just like in the NFL, I get it. They have those things to protect themselves. But John Morant is not Bugsy Siegel. He is not John Gotti. He is not Al Capone. He made a stupid mistake at 22 years old. He loves hip hop, just like a lot of young black men. I love it too, although I do think, yeah, there's some poison that has been pushed into our kids and our community with it. And you could say that has an effect on Ja. And what Ja Morant needs really is his dad, his bro. You know, if he has, his father shows up to his games, his dad could put him aside and get in his ear. Hey, homie, watch it. Are you stupid? Don't mess up this bag. Because I want this brother to get. I want him to get his millions. He's worth a lot of. He's set to get, I think, like a $200 million contract next year. 194 million, whatever it's worth. Don't screw it up, brother. They're watching you. They want you to. They want you to step out of bounds. They're waiting for it. You are going to be the next end of the month. That's what they're trying to do with John Moran. But yeah, I wanted to talk about that quick, guys. I'm going to wrap it up. Of course, I want y'all to buy The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania versus William H. Cosby Jr. on Kindle. I need you also, ladies and gentlemen, to go to the Patreon, to our channel. You can advertise by hitting me up at gavin.julius1@gmail.com. Go to Nani's Creole Blends to get you some Creole seasoning. Try on chicken, meat, or fish. Nani's goes great with every dish. Subscribe to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania versus William H. Cosby page at Commonwealth Cos. And buy our songs, Gotta Get On Up, as well as Video Soul. All right, I'm about to get out of here, guys. I gotta go to bed too. I have a comedy show. If you are in the New Orleans area, we got a comedy show for you all tomorrow. Actually, I'm gonna be at the Wait What comedy show at the I say Comedy Gumbo. It's actually the Hollering Wolf. Same place where they do Comedy Gumbo, but you can get tickets on sale right now. It's gonna be a great show. This awesome lineup. There's an awesome lineup, guys. If you go get your tickets now, this is the flyer we have for the show here. So this is gonna be a fun night. Whoa! Don't need to see that shit. That's not me. That was the guy who produced the show. But yeah, you click on the link, you get tickets. Now look, somebody made this. They made this. I just want to show this as we get out. This was an advertisement for the mall. They made me into a video game. I want to show y'all. Yeah, shout out to Jeffrey Goshen. All right, y'all. Y'all hit that like, share, and subscribe button. I will see y'all in the next one, family. I'll see y'all in the next one. All right, love y'all. Please donate to the Cash App, PayPal, Zelle. Shout out to Cheryl for your donation. That's greatly appreciated. All right, guys. Thank you to Shawn for coming on. We're out, guys. Good night.